Good evening, everybody. It's a beautiful 5th of February, 2025. Coming up this episode, the Crusty podcast, episode 336. Heading into annexation, question mark. 30 days until we sort our issues out with the border. Or Mr. Trump will increase the tariffs. Or, who knows, annexation maybe? Maybe a bit of an argument? Who knows? All that more coming to the podcast. Please stick around. Listener view discretion is advised because I will swear, smoke cigarettes, make fun of people, Canadians, Americans, some Brits, you name it. And I will just carry on as per. See you in a bit.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me.
Yes, sir.
There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 336 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Heading into annexation, 30 days, and then what? Tisk, tisk, tisk. This podcast is brought to you in part by and supported by Veterans for Freedom Network. That's right. Stand to Veterans for Freedom. And coming soon, I know I keep saying that, Veterans for Freedom TV, like my individuals such as myself and other veterans, will be having our podcast on that network soon. So stay tuned for that. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Hope you've had a wonderful couple of days. Hope everything is tickety-boo, hunky-dory, all that good stuff. And even though the plight of our nation is in balance, we will carry on nonetheless. It's funny. At work today, as I was working, I listened to the news. I listened to podcasts. I put the radio on. I listened to news broadcasts just to keep my mind off the hum of those engines every time I'm working. When I'm moving snow or manure or I'm feeding cattle, that the engines have a certain hum. So the podcast help, right? When I listen to other points of view from Clyde Do Something or Moose No Loose, they've got great shows. Radio Reaction, great show. Northern Perspective, great show. And I all get the same consensus that there are a few more Canadians out there now, let's say what there was 20 years ago, that really get this idea that maybe joining the States isn't a bad thing. Okay. Now, in my 20s, I used to despise a lot of the pro-war mandates, the pro-war attitudes, because in Canada at that time, we lived a pretty good life, even though prior to my time joining the military, life was good for Canadians. Healthcare, jobs, economics, things were stable. They weren't perfect, but they were stable. And then when I got into the military, and within at least the first 5 years, I could really see the devastation that the federal government has caused for our military. Okay. Now, this episode is not just geared towards how Canada treats its soldiers and how America treats its soldiers. I'm getting up to the point about the annexation idea and the ideology behind it. And I'll have some articles here for you to look at your leisure, per se. But when you see the contrast between both our countries, you can obviously say and agree, whether you disagree with Mr. Trump or whether you disagree with certain presidents of before, the United States gets shit done when they have to. Okay. They have a notable record of humanitarian aid. They have a notable record of fighting the bad guy, getting the bad guy. But they've also lost a lot of people in the process doing it too. For one, I believe we should go to war if we absolutely have to as a last resort, or if we're being invaded. Now, Canada right now does not have a pot to piss in. And Donald Trump has noticed that. And he mentioned that before the first time he was president. And I was noticing it again. Now, whether he's trolling to get on the prime minister's case or not, or the whole Liberal cabinet's case or not, there are some Americans that would think it would be a pretty good idea if we became the 51st state. Excuse me. But we're also big and vast enough, too, that we can't be just one state. We'd have to be multiple states if the consensus was there. And secondly, you'd have to let every province or every jurisdiction have its own rules and regulations, just like every state legislation has its own rules and regulations, too. It'd have to be a little more, lenient when it comes to freedoms. Medically speaking, yeah, health insurance is good in some states. Health insurance is bad in some states, from what I've heard from people that live in Massachusetts and Vermont and New Hampshire. Texas, I've heard some great things. California, mediocre things. But then California is the woke capital of the world now. They're holding on for their dear wokeness as we speak. Did you watch the Grammys? Holy shit. I couldn't stand watching the Grammys. Beyonce becoming country and western album. Her latest release was a country and western album. I don't think so. George Strait would be going, what the fuck? Right? I'm not a country and western fan. So what's that tell you? But needless to say, when you see the contrast between both our countries, we always had that dynamic to get along. Canada did stand beside America in the First World War. Canada stood by America in the Second World War. Canada was involved in the Second World War 2 years before the United States got involved. Right? Canada was there during Korea. Now, somewhere that we had this shift in the 60s where Canada became more of the peacekeeper model too. And in a way, it was get the downward spiral. Now, there's nothing wrong with sending peacekeepers to a war-torn nation to stop an actual fight. But somewhere along the line in our history, Canadians have forgot that you have a military to protect your country, not to keep the peace for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Right? So Canada, snap out of that fucking routine right now. It's no longer 1968. It's 2025. Okay, to all the boomers and Gen Xers out there, and some of us Gen Xers are just as bad for it, snap out of it. Okay? Snap out of it. It's that simple. Okay? Unless you have served in a peace support operation and trained for a peace support operation, you still train the same as you would for a battle, just in case the people you're keeping the peace from want to turn around and attack you, or keeping the peace for want to turn around and attack you. Just think about Medak Pocket, a little part of our history there, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So when it comes to the whole heading to annexation, I put question marks too. I would like to know exactly why some Canadians think that way. Is the grass going to be greener on the other side? Let's say if it did happen, if it was an overnight stroke of the pen, Donald Trump says, okay, Frenchie, how much for Canada? How much for Canada? Okay, done. Got it. No more. You're no longer a fake prime minister. You're no longer wanted because you're fake. You're fake news. You know what I mean? But what would happen? That's the thing. I myself, you've heard me ramble on before, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm a patriot, love my country, and I got nothing against the United States. I've disagreed with many of their battles. I disagree with some of their mandates. I disagree with some of the bullying, and they have done. And I'm sure there's some Americans out there that would agree to that too. Okay. But in the same sense, they get shit done. And at least we should learn what kind of example we can do, what we can do to make our lives better too. I would have to say, start with a bloody election. Quit this pussyfooting around that the prime minister is still doing, because he's still technically the prime minister. Okay. Quit pussyfooting around, quit wasting our fucking time, and get back to Parliament and call an election. And then, let the adults call the shots again.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
You're back, ladies and gentlemen, the Crusty Canuck Podcast, episode 336, heading to annexation. Yeah, I know it's scary, isn't it? Say for example, hypothetically, now I'm not promoting this kind of behavior, nor am I believing that it will happen. But let's say the big what if. Let's say one day we go about our business and Trump's had enough of Justin Trudeau, and he's had enough of Mexico, and he's had enough of these countries and that countries. And let's say Donald Trump says, okay, let's send some tanks over the border. What do you think would happen, right? Now, it would be scary, of course. Would it be beneficial to the United States to do that? What would the rest of the world think? Regardless of how embarrassing our prime minister has made us, regardless of how embarrassed I am personally, what the prime minister has done to this country, I wonder how many people would come to our aid. That's the thing. Because really, we have a military that might stand up for a day or two, a couple days if we're lucky. And then what? You'd have the civilian population that are armed that would have to engage. That's my tactical point of view on that. But then again, why would something like that happen to begin with, too? What would we have to do? What would our government have to do to piss off the American powerhouse so much to do that? It's a what if. I'm not saying it's going to happen or it will happen, but it's a what if. Okay. What would happen if you're walking one day with your wife and you're walking your pets or you're walking with your kids, you look up in the sky and you see an aircraft and it's little men are coming out of it in parachutes. But you realize that aircraft's not American. It's probably Chinese or it might be Russian. What would you do? That's where America would come in handy. But see, that's one of the points Donald Trump was trying to make too, to our government and to other governments around the globe. It's like, quit mooching off the United States and start being a little more self-sufficient. If anything, I think Donald Trump is telling us to be more self-sufficient, which we should be, right? And we do have the resources and the manpower and the smarts to do it. Unfortunately, we're running out of money because we have a government that wants to spend and spend and spend and spend over there, over here, but not right here. So when it comes to these plans they talk about, we have a plan to get this and we have a plan to get that. Well, it's not good enough. We got a 30-day extension till the tariffs come through. Is the $1.6 billion going to be spent in the next couple of weeks and you're going to have actual manpower on the borders? Or are you going to keep promoting this whole drone thing and maybe buy one or two more helicopters for the patrols that go across the borders, right? Helicopters that the military should have, but needless to say, you're going to buy more helicopters and just like that, right? So that example alone should tell you wonderful people out there, my Canadian audience, my American office, and my American friends and my American fans, okay, what our government is doing. Now, just because we all vote every 4 years, that doesn't mean every Canadian represents the shitheads that are sitting in Ottawa right now. Okay? They don't speak for a lot of us out here. They speak for a handful here and there. Okay? To my American listeners, it's what we call the Laurentian elite. It's almost like, how would you say? Kind of like a family compact. But instead of it being the 1830s, it's a family compact of the 2020s. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's kind of interlinked and intertwined somehow. Little scissor here, little scissor there, slap and tickle for someone else's pickle here. That explains for itself. I'll leave a link in the description for my fans out there and viewers. In case you haven't taken Canadian history, what the Family Compact was and what the Family Compact did. And it led to the Upper Canada Rebellion in 1837. So there's something to think about too. Right? But I'm not going to sit here and dwell about warfare and dwell about what ifs all the time. I'm going to dwell on this too. To my Canadian listeners who think annexation would be a good thing, honestly ask yourselves if your life would be easier. Right? Is the grass greener on the other side? Is it? Now, Trump says, okay, you'd be protected. You'd have lower taxes. Okay. But you'd probably get lower pay too. Okay. And you would still have the same problems when it comes to municipalities and state laws. You'd have municipal taxes, of course, like we do. You'd have state taxes, and you'd have your federal taxes as well. Okay? Now, I would love to have a strong dollar again, but that strong dollar has to come from Canadians. That has to come from Canadians trading and commercing with inside the country. So get rid of all these border restrictions, these provincial restrictions when it comes to trading through via provinces. I've said that before in my last episode. Get rid of it. Okay? Let Canadians make some fucking money, Ottawa. Okay? And to the believers in Quebec, now, Mr. Premier Legault even said in an interview the other day that it's not socially acceptable at this time to have a pipeline go through Quebec. Yet that pipeline provides oil that Alberta sells to the United States that gives you $13.9 billion this fiscal year. But you don't care about that, though, right? You don't want dirty, filthy Alberta oil, but you'll buy dirty Saudi oil, Nigerian oil, Venezuelan oil, and then collect the good money from Canadian oil. That's like you leaving home and mom and dad paying your bills because you just don't feel like doing your part. Right? Do the math.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 336, the Crusty Canuck podcast. 30 days, then what? I'm your host, Crusty Canuck, and we'll see. Come March 4th, we'll have to see what kind of plan our government has. because every time the federal government gets on television and discusses the whole thing about politics and about security and safety, it's all just one big goddamn full mouth of marbles. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And some of my veteran buddies, we've chimed in this. We have a couple of conversations the other day in regards to this. And basically, they're just afraid. They're afraid, but they also don't care either, too. There's still that Canadian arrogance. Oh, that will never happen to us. We're too nice. Oh, we don't need this. Someone else will look after it for us. That's what's got us into trouble the first time, and the second time, and the third time, and now. So is it going to take something more devastating to wake us up, to smell the coffee? Right? We got to stop relying on other people to do the right thing. Okay? We're supposed to elect leaders that are supposed to do the right thing. And how many leaders have done the right thing in the past 10 years? Think about that. Think really hard. Not too hard where you break, you have a vein pop out of your head, but it's self-explanatory nonetheless. Okay? Now, I'm going to have a little history thing here for you all here too. Basically, movements for annexation of Canada to the United States. Now, this is off the Wikipedia page. Do not take it as gospel. Wikipedia has been known to alter things in the name of narratives, but I'll read some of it here for you, and you can decide, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have a set of encyclopedias at home, look up the annexations and look up the Manifest Destiny too, if you can. Interesting subject. I remember that back in grade school. But basically, it's just certain movements in certain parts of our history, North American history, not just Canadian history, but North American history, where we've had to, thwart certain attempts. So I'll read the first few paragraphs here, ladies and gentlemen. From the independence of the United States until today, various movements within Canada and the United States have campaigned in favor of U.S. annexation of parts of all of Canada, parts of or all of Canada. Historical studies have focused on numerous small-scale movements, which are helpful in the comparisons of Canadian and American politics. In the early years of the United States, many American political figures were in favor of invading and annexing Canada, and even pre-approved the admission of the province of Quebec, previously known as Lower Canada, to the U.S. in the Articles of Confederation in 1777. During the American Revolutionary War, the Americans invaded the St. Lawrence River Valley, but were repelled. Americans also fought the British and allied Indigenous peoples in the Ohio country, what was then southwest of Quebec. At the end of the war, the land south of the Great Lakes was ceded to a newly independent United States and became the Northwest Territory. In the War of 1812, the Americans again invaded Canada in reprisal of the British impressment of American sailors on high seas and support for Indigenous peoples resisting American westward expansion, Manifest Destiny, but were repulsed again. During and after the American Civil War, several American politicians called for the annexation of Canada because Britain's material support of the Confederacy, which one historian asserts lengthened the war by 2 years, mostly inflicted by British blockade runners delivering arms supplies. Confederate agents operating in Canada received support from a large portion of Canadians throughout the war, allowing the British colony to be used as a base to attack the U.S., such as the St. Albans raid. In 1872, Alabama claims the U.S. was compensated $15.5 million in war reparations by the British for damages caused only by British-built Confederate commerce raiders as part of the 1871 Treaty of Washington. Historian Joseph Levitt notes, since the Treaty of Washington in 1871, when the first de facto recognized the new Dominion of Canada, thank you, Sir John A. Macdonald, the United States never suggested or promoted an annexation movement in Canada. No serious force has appeared on the American political scene that aimed to pursue or coerce Canadians into joining the United States. And in fact, no serious initiative for any more in this direction has come from the Canadian side either. So there's a bit of history there too. Now, Sir John A., what I remember of basic high school history, Sir John A. wanted to make Canada whole, just in case there was an annexation, because they had a bloody civil war, and he thought there was a threat. Not a threat like there was the Cold War, where the free world feared the Soviet onslaught, but it was just in case. Because let's say if there was an annexation and there was force that came from the south to the north, then Britain would be right there to back up Canada. And who knows, at that time, probably France too. So, it's a what if scenario. But there's always been talk of the annexation. Now, don't glorify it, folks. Like, that's what I'm saying. Is the grass going to be green on the other side? That's something to think about. I'm not disenfranchising the American system. That's good for the Americans. I love our parliamentary system. The problem is we've got terrible leadership, and we do need amendments to our Constitution, and we do need amendments to our self-defense, and we need amendments to how we secure things around here and how it should be done properly, effectively, and efficiently. But of course, you bring that to a liberal right now. Oh, we'll come up with a plan and maybe get something done in about 6 or fucking 12 years.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 336 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. If you like and hear what you see, click like, subscribe, share this content, all of your social media platforms too. And once again, thank you to my new subscribers out there. I've got maybe half a dozen that came in the past day. So thank you very much. You guys are wonderful. You're awesome. And please, to any of my American or British viewers, I don't care where you are in Britain. I don't care if you're in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland. I don't care where you are. Weigh in, chime in, give me a comment, give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're there too. If you happen to see this live when it's premiered and I get to talk with you all, please chime in. Just tell me where you are, where you're watching from. You don't have to give me your details. Don't have to give me any money. If you want to donate, you can, but just let me know, because the last time I went live, I had about 25 people actually watching. I was like, wow, this is great. I get people watching my show. So let me know where you're writing from. I don't care if you're in Canada, the United States, Mexico, anywhere in the world. Just say, hello, how you doing? Like your show or don't like your show from wherever, that's fine. Just let me know. Anyway, carrying on with this whole, annexation. Now, I put question marks because who knows what's going to happen. I don't want annexation. I like the United States for what they are, but I also love my country too. And I'm not willing just to give it up just yet because we have incompetency and fools. We've all worked for people one way or the other. Doesn't matter where you work in your life. Doesn't matter if you serve in the army. Doesn't matter if you're a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, doctor, lawyer. Doesn't matter if you have a white-collar job, a blue-collar job. We've all worked for a bunch of people that never really gave a shit about you, about anybody else. But it took the guys rising up to see things for what they were and to call that leadership into question. We as Canadians must do that. Now, I've said to some of my friends online, I have a good relationship with Frank Vaughn. He's a hell of a guy. We've had many talks. He's been a guest on my podcast before. We've shared commentary on many of episodes, and he's just a great all-around individual. Good family man. He's a poet. He's an artist, but he's also quite, how would you say? He's very articulate, and he's quite informative. So I suggest you watch his podcast too. And just listen to the man's passion, how he talks about Canada, how he talks about growing up and how he loves his family and how he brings information to the masses here too. We've got too much corruption in our parliament, too much corruption in our border, and too much corruption in our security. And he's bringing that to light. I have for years seen how the Liberal Party has done nothing but good for a handful of their buddies, like the Laurentian elite, and what they believe in, noble causes. We've got too many ideologues and activists calling the shots for this country. We the people, and I'm not taking this from the American point of view. I'm taking this from a right now Canadian point of view. We the people, doesn't matter if it's a Magna Carta, doesn't matter if it's a charter in Britain, doesn't matter if it's a charter here in Canada or a charter in the United States. We the people that pay the taxes, people that live here, that got to put up with this garbage. So we all the people are saying enough to Ottawa and your garbage. So you're going to have to come up with a better plan the next fucking 30 days rather than just think, oh, we got a plan to put helicopters here and we got a plan to put these drones here and everything's hunky-dory. No, it's not. You got to start being serious. Trump is not fucking around. It's that simple. He's not fucking around. Okay? He's not. And it's about time that we stop fucking around too and start being a little more realistic. especially when it comes to dealing with the people, Ottawa, okay, and separatists in Quebec. Not all Quebecers, but the separatists in Quebec who do not want Canadian fucking oil, okay? When I look at Danielle Smith, she is the only one who has gone back and forth to the States who actually had the cojones to make some proper deals with the man who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. Okay? He wrote the book. He knows what to do. And whether you love or hate the guy, he's not fucking around. Neither's Danielle Smith. Scott Moe did a bit of something too. I don't know much about him. I know he's doing well for Saskatchewan, right? But every other premier in this country is talk tough, talk tough, talk tough. You're not fucking tough. You're wimps. I would be impressed if you actually did something for your province other than talk virtue and take certain liquor bottles off or threaten to turn this off or threaten to turn that off. Build something. That's what Pierre Poilievre wants. Build something. Cut down some red tape. Make something. Make a better highway. Make a better concrete. Make a better cement. Pipelines. Energy East. Northgate. Pipelines. Right? Don't give me this green initiative. We're not leading the world in anything. We're leading the world how we can lie about democracy and put people into debt. That's what we're leading the world in. Right? So when people talk about annexation, think about what's going on here. Think about what this country has done for Canadians prior to 2015. We're old enough to know. So those kids now that are 10, 11 years old, let's hope when they're 15 or 16, they can start seeing a light. Anyway, here's an article from Northern or National Post there, too. I'll share up in queue with these ladies and gentlemen, too. Excuse me. And about the BS when it comes to what Canada is doing. And National Post is pretty straightforward. You know, I do like what they have to say once in a while, but I'll read along with this, and I'll leave the article, and I'll leave that Wikipedia article there, too, in my description, ladies and gentlemen, for you guys to read at your leisure. U.S. tariffs on hold for 30 days after Canada commits to beefing up border security. Canada has agreed to deploy its prior $1.3 billion in spending plan and nearly 10,000 frontline personnel to the border. Okay, this is published on the 3rd of February. So Ottawa has agreed to deploy its $1.3 billion border enhancement plan along with thousands of frontline personnel to strengthen security on the U.S. boundary in exchange for White House pausing 25% tariffs for at least 30 days. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made the announcement on social media on Monday afternoon, shortly after his second phone call day with the U.S. President Donald Trump. Of course, I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada's implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border, he wrote. Okay, so I will leave this article for you. I am not going to read the whole thing because we've all seen Potato Puppet lie his way into victory, lie his way out of honesty. And I guess he's devastated because the Aga Khan has passed away. Well, too effing bad, right? Didn't he get in trouble the first time with the Aga Khan? You know, a free holiday from some kind of religious zealot. So who cares? Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave these articles in my description one more time. If you like and hear what you see, click like, subscribe. Share this podcast all over social media platforms. Do not be shy, ladies and gentlemen. Give me a thumbs up. And once a reminder, too, wherever you comment, please comment. Tell me where you're from so I get a consensus. The Yankee Tango algorithm is telling me here, there. But I want you, my wonderful audience, to tell me where you're writing from. Okay, I'm not going to stalk you. Just, whatever your screen name is and say, hi, how you doing, whatever, from blah, 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 blah. I don't care if you're from Kent, England. I don't care if you're from Kitchener, Waterloo. I don't care if you're from Kentucky. Let me know where you're writing from, ladies and gentlemen. Please let me know. Okay, just give me a better consensus of what's going on here, too. Anyhow, like I said, I'm just getting winded here. I'm getting kind of emotional, too, because, this stuff just drives me nuts. This buffoonery before me, it's just, and hopefully it probably pisses you off, too. And it should, especially my fellow Canucks out there who have invested time and effort in this country, and my fellow veterans as well. And even the veterans we had to bury. You know what I mean? So we've got to we just got to focus on what's that flag behind me there, right? It's worth fighting for, ladies and gentlemen. It is, and I'll fight for it to my last fucking breath. I'll leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. I have been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 5th of February, ladies and gentlemen. 5th of February, 2025. It's colder outside. It was a nice balmy minus 23 with a wind chill of minus 34. Brr. That's fucking cold. But keep your wits about you. Keep your vehicles plugged in and all that too. Don't be idiots on the highways. Take your time if need be. If you're going to be late for work, let your boss know you're going to be late for work because of the weather. He'll probably thank you for it. But needless to say, just go about your business. Keep your chins up. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of your accomplishments. Be proud of your country. Okay, this half-assed Team Canada that our government's promoting, they're not Team Canada. They're Team Wanker. No, that's just my thought. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 5th of February, 2025. I wish good things for you all out there. Stay focused, stay real. And this episode's songs, I got 2 instrumentals that I picked for these episode songs. Joe Satriani, exceptional guitarist, one hell of a guitarist. A track called Motorcycle Driver from his Extremist album of 1992. That's one of those songs when you're driving on the highway, you got to crank it right up. It fits the moment, fits the scenario. Another instrumental by a great band that made their debut in the mid 80s, but their breakthrough album, Faith No More, The Real Thing, Woodpecker from Mars. Take it as you will. It's just a great sci-fi tune for me. I get a lot of sci-fi ideas in my head when I listen to that song, so I want to share that with you, ladies and gentlemen. So, Joe Satriani from his Extremist album, Motorcycle Driver, and Faith No More from The Real Thing, Woodpecker from Mars. So please enjoy that at your leisure, ladies and gentlemen, and crank it up fucking loud, right? That's all I got to say. But, that's it for me today. I will try to see you in a couple of days, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. We'll have to see, ladies and gentlemen. But like I always say, look after your friends and loved ones. Do what you can to help you out in these trying times. And don't be afraid to stand up for what's fucking right. And just do your best in the meantime to be good to people. Okay? And like I always say, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and I'll see you next time, everybody. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.
I will always remember, and I'll never forget. Cheers, Stabs and friends. Ooh.